Today, I'm announcing the Conservative Affordability Team, our renewed shadow cabinet. We have three priorities: affordability, affordability, and affordability.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Maple Conservative Girl podcast. My name is Danica, and happy Canada Day to all my beautiful, patriotic fellow Canadians who love their country. There's just so much happening, and none of it is good news if you're an everyday Canadian, trying to fill up your tank, trying to buy a house, trying to figure out why your paycheck just doesn't go as far as it used to. Feels like we all have this dog paddling energy swimming through the economy, barely drowning, right? We've got CUSMA hanging by a thread. We've got a so-called condo bailout that got people furious from all angles. We've got a viral clip of a woman just absolutely nailing the truth about who's actually responsible for the recession. But first, Poilievre just shook up the entire Conservative shadow cabinet, and I want to get right into that right away. So if you like this episode, please like, share, subscribe.
Fighting for you to have affordable groceries, gas, and mortgage payments, for you to have growing take-home pay and dollars that go further, for you to have safe streets, for you and your family. We are. Today, I'm announcing the Conservative Affordability Team, our renewed shadow cabinet. We have three priorities: affordability, affordability, and affordability. Sure, we'll fight for other things like national unity and healthcare. We'll fight against crime and corruption. But all of those problems are made worse because of liberal recessions and liberal inflation. You're asked to work harder and harder, to pay more and more for less and less, while the liberal club of insiders, power brokers, and lobbyists, they get ahead on carve-outs, bailouts, and handouts paid for by you. Enough. We're on your side, on the side of the people who work hard, pay their taxes, and play by the rules for a country that's affordable at home, safe at home, and united at home. And that is why we're going to continue to fight for you. We have the team, we have the plan, we have the hope, we have the fight. Share this video.
So let's start with the big conservative news, because I think this is way more important than people realize. Poilievre blew up his entire shadow cabinet yesterday morning, and he's rebranding it the Conservative Affordability Team. And when asked what the priorities are, affordability, affordability, and affordability. Just the thing that every single Canadian is lying awake at night worrying about: groceries, gas, rent, mortgage. The Conservatives are literally the only ones in Ottawa who can, read the room. Now let's talk about the moves, because some of them are big. You got Michael Chong, veteran MP, former Harper cabinet minister, one of the most respected people on this side of the aisle, and now the finance critic. The government always likes to say that, they're a new government, this new liberal government, but Mark Carney's just like Justin Trudeau, but he wears a better suit, he has a banker haircut. In the end, he's the same, right? He was Trudeau's economic advisor for like 4 years before he became prime minister. He has the same deficit spending, the same choked economy, the same Canadians getting squeezed. The Conservatives are not wrong to say that out loud. It's not being negative to face reality. And now Michael Chong got the platform to say it out loud. His job is basically to show people that Mark Carney is the same as Justin Trudeau, but worse in his spending. And it's terrible. The spending is just insane. And then you've got Shuvaloy Majumdar, who takes the Canada-US relations cabinet position. And look, with CUSMA on life support right now, this is not a desk job, right? This is like the fire alarm going off, and Poilievre just put this guy in this position for a reason. And we've got Aaron Gunn as well. He has great documentaries, by the way. He gets ethics and accountability, which, given the condo bailout scandal that we're about to get into, it tells you exactly where this opposition is taking the fight when Parliament comes back in the fall. Another piece of news is that Larry Brock is stepping back from Justice Critic for personal reasons. He says that he is still fully behind Poilievre, but we'll see what the media will try to do with this, right? Is he, leaving because the leader is such a bad leader? There might just be like a magnifying glass on him leaving. Like, he was a great MP, by the way. But here's the bigger picture. The Conservatives are sitting about 10 points behind the Liberals in the polls. Poilievre took a loss last year that nobody saw coming after leading for years, and there has been real pressure on him to show that, he's listened, he's learned, and he's evolved. And today, this is him answering to that pressure. He's tightening the message, rotating his MPs to fit them where they should go after like a year of observing how they are, putting sharp people on the sharpest files, and he's doing it right as Carney is where? Bailing out condo developers and dodging questions on CUSMA. Oh, and getting sprayed with water at the Pride Parade. The contrast between the Conservatives and the Liberals could not be clearer, right? Like, one party is talking about affordability, the other is writing billion-dollar blank checks with no price tag attached. One party is coming up with ideas about how to get a trade deal, and the other one is focused on being at a pride parade when he should be negotiating with America. That's just my opinion. And there are more and more Canadians who are realizing that, the Conservatives are the ones who are standing up for them. Like, they stand for the little person. Okay, so moving on. So let's talk trade, because this is the file that actually determines whether your job potentially doesn't exist in 2 years. And it's also, as I just covered, the file that the Conservatives just put a senior MP in charge of scrutinizing.
Está determinado en el tratado.
What can happen is set out in the treaty. It is not something someone just came up with. So one possibility, for example, is to extend it for another 16 years. That letter has to be signed before Wednesday, before tomorrow. So I, for example, have already signed Mexico's position, which is to extend it for another 16 years.
16 años. Hizo lo procedente el secretario.
Canada's economy minister did what was required, and now we are waiting for the United States' response.
Estados Unidos. Si no deciden ampliarlo por 16.
If they do not decide to extend it for 16 years, then a review process begins. That does not mean it will always be reviewed every year, but rather that a formal review process would begin.
So what's going to happen with CUSMA? Extend it another 16 years, lock in stability, or don't extend, which kicks off a messy annual review process with no clear end date, and nobody will be investing in Canada with this kind of uncertainty because investors rely on our trade deal with America. So no deal, no investment. And what did Trump say going into that deadline? He has been telling reporters flat out that he's not looking to renew the deal. Then a week later, he goes even further and he says that looking at CUSMA possibly could be expiring immediately, which are really strong words and really scary headlines. Who knows what will happen, right? Because it's not only Canadians that are suffering with these tariffs. American manufacturers don't want it gone. American farmers don't want it gone. The auto sector down there is begging the administration to keep it. So is this just Trump's classic negotiating style where he threatens the House down and then signs the deal anyway? Who knows? But it looks like Mark Carney is betting on it, which I think is like gambling with Canadians' paychecks, Canadians' jobs, Canadians' livelihoods. So I don't think it's a good strategy for him to like call Trump's bluff, because we never know what's going to happen. He might just cancel it. And the only thing that would be good, really, is to keep CUSMA in place for like many years. If it's up for annual review, that's no good. Carney told Canadians point blank that he had a plan and he had a relationship with Trump that would get this sorted out. We are sitting here basically on review day, and what do Canadians actually have to show for months of elbows up talk and high-level meetings that haven't produced anything at all? It's all vibes, no outcomes. Meanwhile, what's actually shielding 90% of our exports right now isn't some brilliant Carney maneuver. Carney likes to say that we have the best trade deal of all the countries, as if he had anything to do with it, as if he negotiated that trade. He's talking about CUSMA, as if he signed the deal with Trump himself back in his first term. Like, what happens if CUSMA goes? What then? Carney has had 1 year to gain leverage. He said that he was good in a crisis, and his slogan is to build Canada strong, except he's not building anything except government control, power, and subsidy programs. You get leverage by building an economy strong enough that the other side needs us as much as we need them. But Carney has not done that. He has actually said that we will not use our resources as leverage. Like, what?
Vacant units in BC. It's taken a lot of people by surprise. Some developers have said they didn't ask for this. There were, though, a lot of developers at your fundraiser in BC in February. Did anybody ask you for this from the development community?
First off, thank you for asking me that question, because not the last bit, I'll answer that last bit, but first off, no developer asked for this for me directly. So that's a simple answer. But I want to go to the broader issue. And I want to say up front, I don't think we've done, self-included, a particularly good job of rolling this out and explaining exactly what it is. So with your indulgence, I'm going to say, I think it's important to say a few words of what this is and what this isn't. We start, as we always do, with Canadians. We don't start with developers. We don't start with what? Yes, it's great that there are developers and they build condos. What we care about is affordable housing, enough affordable housing, in this case, for the people of British Columbia. And the province of British Columbia, which initiated the idea, sees an opportunity, potentially given what's happening in that market, to convert some of these condos that are lying unsold to affordable housing, particularly rent-to-buy affordable housing for, and you can anticipate, so these are people, in many cases, young families, but people who don't have money for a down payment, but can build in that equity over time, rent to buy. So there's an opportunity there. You have a market in Vancouver, which is particularly Greater Vancouver, Lower Mainland, which is absorption rates have moved down to about 60%. They sort of average on 80% in a normal market. So in other words, there's more condos that are there.
He just talks and talks and talks and talks until the average Canadian just loses him. These condos are lying unsold, and the government's reaction is to buy them because poor condo developers who don't feel like taking a loss on their bad risk investment. As Poilievre says, we're the ones paying for this. This is the truth. While you are out there struggling to pay rent, while young Canadians are being told that home ownership is basically a fantasy, while families are choosing between groceries and their hydro bill, choosing to not have kids in the first place, to not even have families because they can't even support themselves, Mark Carney flew to Vancouver and announced that the federal government is going to buy up over 2,000 empty luxury condos that we will ultimately pay for and hand developers a bailout dressed up as a housing plan. This is a fake housing plan. 2,000 condos. It's not a small amount. Right in Vancouver that nobody wanted to buy because they were overpriced, because developers built for the luxury market and gambled wrong. And now your tax dollars are riding to the rescue and bailing these liberal insiders out. Poilievre has been calling it exactly what it is, a transfer of wealth from the have-nots to the have-yachts. And it sounds like, just some dumb slogan, but it's true. It's exactly what's actually happening. These are developers who overbuilt, leveraged themselves, chasing a profit. In a real market, in a free market, too bad. They eat that loss. The banks absorb it. The units eventually sell at a price that people can actually afford. That's how a correction works. That is literally how housing gets more affordable. One of the ways. But instead, this government just walks in, tells the developers that they're going to buy these condos, and they call it a housing strategy. Like, this is not a housing strategy. It is a developer rescue mission wrapped up in the language of we're helping you, of affordability, of we're there for you, we're doing so much for you, gaslighting us. And here's the part that should make everyone furious. 5 days after the announcement, they still could not tell Canadians the price per unit. They couldn't tell us the total cost. They couldn't confirm whether they'd even negotiate a discount. Nothing. One analyst ran the numbers and said that if they're buying at even the low end, around like $800 a unit, you're looking at close to $1.8 billion. And Carney's own response, he says, well, we haven't really done a very good job at explaining what this actually is, so I'm going to go on to word salad and blah, 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 blah. I'm explaining what it is, but in a word salad, blah, 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 blah. He can't do a good job explaining it because there is no good explanation for it.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling for an urgent meeting of the House of Commons Ethics Committee to look into what he's calling a condo bailout announced by the government earlier this month. In a letter to the committee chair obtained by CTV News, Poilievre accuses Prime Minister Mark Carney and his government of bailing out developers instead of helping taxpayers. It follows a June 18th announcement by the Prime Minister that Ottawa and the BC government plan to use innovative financing tools to convert more than 2,200 vacant condo units into priority areas into affordable housing. A move Poilievre says would preserve high prices for developers rather than bring costs down for buyers.
Good on Poilievre. Canadians deserve to know exactly whose friends got rich off this deal, exactly what was paid, and exactly who in this government thought that bailing out Vancouver condo developers was the best use of over $1 billion during a cost of living crisis. But this is the exact definition of the liberal instinct, like in a nutshell, right? Every time the market is broken, their answer is never, let's get out of the way. It's always, let's write a check. Like, this is not a good thing for the economy, okay? Writing checks to bail companies out and developers out and giving our money in the form of subsidies to let's say EV battery plants that go bankrupt. It is so ridiculous. This is not good for the economy. It's not good for the housing crisis or for Canadians. This is good for the people who have contact with the Liberals, who are in the Liberal elite, as Pierre Poilievre says.
Has been on a managed decline for the last decade. And we largely, pulled our poker chips, called the natural resource sector, and we've gone home. And I would say that Trump becomes a very easy, and don't get me wrong, I am not a Trump fan, but Trump becomes a very easy target and a very easy excuse. And really what we need to focus on is our own behavior. And we are the solution. We are the opportunity. We are and should be the wealthiest country in a time of crisis when we have one of the largest or fourth largest resource that's available for the world to have in a way that is far more humane and far better for emissions to extract. So why we would not actually, put those poker chips back on the table and become the resource giant that we should be and the energy superpower that we have every birthright to become is beyond me. I often say on the show with Jim that, energy is everything and energy is prosperity. And cheap energy is the greatest prosperity that we could afford to our citizens. And having said that, I think that if we spend too much time blaming Trump, that we actually don't deal with those issues at home. We haven't gotten a pipeline started. We don't have an economy. We've been in decline for the 3 out of the last 4 quarters. that is scary to me. There is no such thing as a technical recession. We are fully in recession. We have people at our doorstops that are literally irate because their power of that dollar that they're bringing home and working hard for has gone in and declined in its usefulness. And I'm looking at my next generation of, my 5 kids, 3 of my own, 2 stepkids, who are literally, beside themselves, not seeing a future, thinking, to themselves, how do I get out of Canada? How do I become one of the 155,000 that left of our, young professionals? And these are educated, and they're now saying, well, I got to get out before they charge me 500,000 to leave. That is devastating to me.
Exactly. She is so right. We have had 11 years of liberal government in this country. 11 years they have had to fix housing, 11 years to get our resource sector moving, 11 years to build pipelines, to diversify our trade, to get our fiscal house in order so that when a guy like Trump comes in with tariff threats, we're not standing there exposed and dependent on the one customer for almost all of our exports. Trump is not the problem. Trump just exposed our problems. And what's the play every single time something goes wrong? Blame Trump. Blame the orange guy in the White House. It's never, maybe we should have built a pipeline to tide water in the last decade. It's never maybe relying on the US for 75% of our exports while doing nothing to open new markets was a mistake. It's always Trump. He is the scapegoat, hiding behind him and blaming him for all of our domestic problems. Like, what a bunch of narcissists, for real. Here's the truth. Trump did not create our affordability crisis. He didn't create our housing crisis. He didn't create the deficit spending, the regulatory mess that's been choking our energy sector for a decade, or the fact that young Canadians cannot afford a home and are still living in their parents' basement, or, they can't buy a house in the city that they grew up in. Those are not Trump's problems. Like, Trump is the president of another country. Like, what the hell does he have to do with our country? Those are homegrown problems, made in Ottawa and made over 11 years. And this new government, by the way, has the same ideology as the Trudeau government. Is Trump being difficult on trade right now? Absolutely. No question. But a country with a strong, diversified, self-sufficient economy doesn't get knocked into a recession because one trading partner got unpredictable. We are vulnerable right now because of choices made here by this government and the one before it. Not because of a tweet from Donald Trump that offends us and makes us really sad and hurts our feelings. We are weak, and we need the US. That's the reality. Like, it's the truth. We are in a weak spot, and Poilievre calling that out is not being negative. It's the Liberal voters. Basically, the Liberal voters are like putting their hands over their ears, chanting la 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 like a child. They don't want to hear the truth. So if blaming Trump isn't the answer, then what is? Open our resource sector. Fully. Not with another task force, not with another consultation period that drags on for 3 years. Actually open it up. We are sitting on some of the largest oil and gas reserves on the planet, the largest critical mineral deposits, uranium, potash, rare earths, you name it, we have it. And instead of being a global energy and resource superpower, we have spent a decade making it harder and harder to build anything in this country. Project reviews that take longer than building the actual project? Like, get real. Emissions caps that target our own producers, while we still import oil from countries with far worse environmental and human rights records. And we don't need to subsidize our way out of this. We do not need another green slush fund, another corporate handout, another Build Canada Homes, which is complete BS, or any kind of agency dreaming up new ways to spend your tax dollars. What our resource sector needs from government is incredibly simple, right? It's get out of the way. cut the approval timelines, scrap the policies that are actively designed to phase out our industry. That is what they want. They want to phase out oil and gas and become net zero. Let private capital, which is sitting on the sidelines right now, by the way, come back in and build. They are waiting for it. They're waiting for us to get out of the way. A Canada that's strong enough, productive enough, and resource-rich enough that we're not dependent on any other country's goodwill in the first place, fix the domestic problem, and the trade leverage takes care of itself. But instead of focusing on that, Carney is out getting so-called potential future deals that mean nothing. MOUs are not real deals. The conservative idea is not a radical idea. That's just basic economics. So that's where we're at. An official opposition that just retooled itself around one word, affordability. A trade deal hanging in limbo because 11 years of this government left us dependent on one customer. A bailout dressed up as a housing fix, and a viral clip that nailed exactly who actually is responsible for the mess that we're in. I'll keep saying it, the fix isn't more government, more subsidies, or more spending programs with no price tag attached to them. It's a government that gets out of the way. It opens up what we already have and lets Canadians build again. It's the conservative platform. So if you agree, hit subscribe, leave a comment with what you think the next move should be on CUSMA, and I'll see you on the weekend. Bye!